In Archie Giant Series 217, Sabrina uses a friendly gas-like spirit from a bottle to help her wrap Christmas presents. I don't know why Hilda thinks this is funny, but it's better than her being mad at her for being lazy, and it's creative how the spirit looks. I just don't know why Sabrina got the idea to do this instead of simply pointing to wrap all the presents. Anyways, Archie Giant Series 455. Yeah, I thought it was weird too that it seemed to skip ahead like 200 issues, but I'm following the Sabrina stories as they were released in chronological order, and apparently this was released right after a Sabrina 70s comic issue and Archie's TV Laugh Out issue 45. Sabrina says she wants her family to throw a Christmas party for themselves, and Zelda and Ambrose agree while Ambrose is reading a newspaper called The Witchcraft Times. Sabrina says she'll use magic to create a Christmas tree, and unlike little Sabrina, she's happy with that instead of her family having to buy her a tree to humor her. So that's refreshingly smart of her. Ambrose says she did a great job, and Zelda says the tree is pretty. Sabrina says the family should zap up presents for each other too. That's also pretty smart of her instead of her still going with the idea that if you do that instead of earning money to buy a gift, it's not satisfying, it doesn't come from the heart. Zelda says they'll all make a list of what they'd like, which is also refreshingly smart to avoid the tired gag of a character not liking a gift. Ambrose says he'll play Santa and uses magic to make himself look like him. Then Hilda predictably yells at them because Christmas is a mortal holiday. She stood up to and says there's no such thing as Santa and uses magic to get rid of the Santa suit. So once again this takes place in a universe where she thinks Santa doesn't exist, when usually he does in Sabrina comics. Ambrose says she won't stop them, but because he didn't just remove Hilda's powers and warp her to another room, she uses magic to ruin the eggnog and Christmas cookies, make your family spit it out, and fortunately figure out immediately that Hilda sabotaged them. Hilda denies it, and when the doorbell rings, someone resembling Santa shows up at the door, which doesn't make sense because he always went through the chimney. She uses magic to make a bunch of snow fall on him, and she finds out it wasn't Ambrose she bothered. The story ends with Santa conveniently out of the snow right away, saying that some people don't deserve nice things. In the next story, Harvey shows up at Sabrina's house sad, and says it's gone on Christmas. Sabrina asks him if he got everything he wanted for Christmas, and he says he did, but he lost his wallet with all of his money. Sabrina hopes someone will return it to him, which does actually happen and gets reported on as good news sometimes. Harvey says that by then it'll be too late for him to buy presents for the poor kid who delivers the paper. He overheard the kid telling someone that Santa won't visit his house this year because his father lost his job. Sabrina immediately believes he won't be able to have Christmas then, instead of questioning why Santa would actually be a jerk like that because she believes him about this. In most Sabrina stories, Santa's real and Sabrina knows it, so what's with all the drama? Harvey complains that he had told that kid that Santa was going to drop something off at his house. Sabrina says she has some extra presents in her room and goes upstairs. She says she'll create some presents for Jimmy, and then Hilda tells her to get rid of them right now before Della finds out. I guess Della's immune to magic, so you can't just erase her memory of something that happened after she warps you. Or else none of the witches would take it seriously when she shows up. If she could find out without being in the same room, it'd mean they're being spied on. So that'd mean it's already too late to unzap the gifts. Can't Sabrina just use magic to change Hilda's mind about this? Why doesn't she freeze Hilda in time until she gives the kid gifts? And then Hilda decides to empty the boxes herself. So the kid gets sad when he sees the empty boxes, and Harvey assumes this is Sabrina's idea of a joke. We didn't need things to be that depressing. Then the kid says it isn't their fault Santa has nothing for him, and then offers Hilda a present, saying that he bought a little something for all of his customers on his paper route. So he gives her a pot holder. They're cheap gifts, but wouldn't they add up? Shouldn't he have given his money to his father? Predictably, she says it's beautiful and feels guilty, and uses magic to make sure he has some presents after all. I just wish the story didn't waste so many panels dwelling on it when it's trying to make us think he wanted to get presents. He didn't need more than one panel of Hilda yelling at Sabrina. Most of the story was just overly sad. In the next story, Sabrina smartly says she's gonna zap up some Christmas candy and cookies because Harvey's on his way over here. Hilda doesn't want that and says she's gonna make herself invisible. Sabrina tells her not to do that and reveals that he's coming here to give her a present. Being invisible wouldn't stop Hilda from going to bother Harvey, and it'd just freak him out because he can't see her. If she wanted to be able to get away with that plan, why did she tell Sabrina she'd do it first? Hilda assumes Harvey's gift will suck, so I'm guessing it'll be great. After all the time she loved getting a Christmas gift, even from him. She says she'll fly out of here. Hilda gets pressured by her family into staying, with Zelda agreeing with Sabrina, and Hilda decides to humor them. Eventually, Harvey shows up, wastes a bunch of time, and then hands her an animal who looks like he hates her and some cat food. I'm glad the story wasn't extremely predictable with the typical sappy ending that she cries from how great her gifts are. Because it would feel cheap if it was used too much. But it's so sad to see her hate getting a cat that she could always use magic to make like her. And some potted petunias that need water every day that's of a very specific temperature. Or she could cast a spell. Is it realistic that the water would have to be exactly 68 degrees for a flower? I assume this is a universe where Salem doesn't exist because Harvey shouldn't waste time giving them a second cat. Harvey says that if anyone deserves those gifts, it's her, but he's not saying that to annoy her on purpose after giving her bad gifts specifically as revenge. That'd be out of character anyways because he's willing to give her a nice gift more often than not. The story ends with Hilda lying on the floor with her head in a bucket while her family's proud of her for resisting the urge to punish Harvey. I guess we have to assume she didn't go on to punish him afterwards so that this could actually be a happy ending. But that's not believable. In the next story, Harvey rushes Sabrina so they'll get to the Christmas pageant, which he thinks is the greatest show of the year. Why did he invite Hilda as well as Sabrina? He tells them they're being too slow. Hilda can't find her purse, but she must be making up an excuse to spite him because she could just use magic to get it. Sabrina thinks she needs her hair combed, even though most people would have combed it in the morning, and she's got nothing to do all day. Plus she has short hair anyways. He yells at them, being more unlikable than usual, but it is relatable for someone to really not want to miss the show he bought tickets for. And they should have been ready earlier. Still, I'm dreading the story only punishing Harvey for not bottling up his impatience with them, when the two of them are equally at fault for waiting until the last minute to get ready. He gets pushed out the door and says it's a good thing he's organized and efficient, apparently, or they'd never get to any place on time. Hilda tells him he's been hollering enough and his car's out of gas. Thankfully, he actually had some gas in the garage, and he looks all sheepish about still letting the car run out of gas, so we get to feel like he actually got some comeuppance. And he wasn't so above it all because it turns out he wasn't entirely ready either, which is more in character for the goofball he usually is. Then it turns out the car is stuck on ice. He asks for a bucket of gravel. At least he's polite about it, and Sabrina goes around to the back of the house and says she'll zap up some gravel. Hilda asks her why she'd go to all that trouble. For no reason, Sabrina actually doesn't zap up gravel, regardless of what Hilda said, even though Hilda's saying that would be in character for someone who doesn't like Harvey. Instead, Hilda tells Harvey to get in the car and give it the gun when she'll say go. She says she'll melt the ice by zapping it, and the car ends up crashing into her garage door. The story ends with Hilda saying that only a backwards dummy like Harvey would go forwards when backing out of a laneway. I guess in this universe he's new to driving. Who would make that mistake when they have their own car? It'd make more sense if Hilda used magic to make him do this out of spite, and then said this to cover it up. So all of his rushing them was for nothing. The first story was a predictable one where Hilda got mad at her family for celebrating too much Christmas. Then there's a story where a kid really needs some presents, and Sabrina eventually gets him some. And Hilda tries to stop her because she's just a cartoon witch, but thankfully she proves she's more than that and eventually makes sure he gets presents after all because she gets a present. Then there's a story where, after some build-up, it turns out that Harvey's gift for Hilda actually does suck. Which at least puts more value on the times when he did give her a good gift. It's a surprise, but it's also pretty sad. He could have easily asked Sabrina what gifts Hilda would like to get. Then Harvey really wants to get somewhere in time, and Hilda and Sabrina are being slow because they're not ready yet. And then after the car is stuck on ice, Harvey ends up crashing into the garage door anyways. So all of the rushing was for nothing.